Kang Minho wiped the sweat from his face as he walked deeper into the crystal caves of Haven 7. The air was thick and hard to breathe, even with his breathing mask on. He had been walking for 3 hours, collecting samples of the strange blue crystals that grew on the cave walls. His job as a scientist on this faraway planet was not easy, but he loved discovering new things. The caves were beautiful, but dangerous. Sharp crystals hung from the ceiling like teeth, and the ground was covered with loose rocks that could trip anyone who was not careful. Minho moved slowly, using his light to see where he was going. His bag was almost full of crystal samples, and he was thinking about heading back to the research station. That was when he heard it. A small weak sound that was almost like crying. Minho stopped walking and listened carefully. The sound came again, very soft and sad. It was not like any animal he knew from Haven 7. His heart began to beat faster as he followed the sound deeper into the cave. Behind a wall of fallen rocks, Minho found something that made him stop breathing for a moment. A small creature was trapped under some heavy stones. It was no bigger than a house cat, but it looked like nothing he had ever seen before. The creature had scales that changed color in his light, going from deep blue to bright silver. Its eyes were closed, but it was still breathing, very slowly and weakly. Minho had studied many alien animals, but this was different. The scales were perfect, like they were made of metal and jewels at the same time. The creature had tiny wings folded against its body, and a long, thin tail that twitched slightly. When Minho looked closer, he could see small horns on its head. His mind raced as he tried to understand what he was looking at. "What are you, little one?" Minho said softly. The creature opened one eye when it heard his voice. The eye was golden and seemed to glow with its own light. For a moment, Minho felt like the creature was looking right into his soul. Then the eye closed again, and the creature made that sad crying sound. Minho knew he had to act fast. The creature was dying. He could see that it was having trouble breathing the cave air, which was full of toxic gases that would kill most living things. His own breathing mask was keeping him safe, but the creature had no protection. He quickly took off his backpack and pulled out his emergency medical kit. Inside were basic tools for helping injured animals and some small oxygen containers for emergencies. Minho was not a doctor, but he had learned basic first aid for his work on dangerous planets. First, he had to free the creature from under the rocks. Minho pushed and pulled at the heavy stones, cutting his hands on the sharp edges. After 10 minutes of hard work, he managed to move enough rocks to pull the creature free. It was even more beautiful up close, but also very sick. The creature's breathing was wrong. Its chest moved too fast, like it was trying to get oxygen from air that could not help it. Minho remembered that some alien animals needed different gases to breathe. He opened one of his small oxygen containers and carefully held it near the creature's nose and mouth. Almost right away, the creature's breathing got better. Its chest stopped moving so fast and some color came back to its scales. Minho smiled, feeling happy that he was helping. But he knew this was just the beginning. The creature needed more help than he could give in the cave. Minho took off his jacket and carefully wrapped the creature in it. It was warm and soft, and he could feel the creature's heart beating against his chest as he held it close. The creature was so light, like it was made of air and starlight. Getting back to the research station was hard. Minho had to carry the creature with one hand and use his light with the other. He walked very carefully, making sure not to trip or bump the creature against the cave walls. Every few minutes, he stopped to give the creature more oxygen from his emergency supply. The walk back took twice as long as usual. Minho's arms were tired, and he was worried that the creature might die before he could get help. But every time he looked down, those golden eyes would open and look at him with what seemed like trust and hope. When Minho finally reached the research station, the sun was setting over Haven 7's purple mountains. The station was a small building made of white metal, with big windows that glowed with warm light. It was home to 12 human scientists and engineers who had come to this planet to study its unique life and minerals. Park Sora was the first person to see Minho when he walked through the station's main door. She was checking the security systems for the night like she did every evening. Sora used to be a soldier before she came to Haven 7, and she still acted like she was protecting everyone, Minho, you look terrible, Sora said, then stopped talking when she saw what he was carrying. What is that thing? I found it in the caves, Minho said, breathing hard from the long walk. It was trapped and dying. I think it needs medical help right away. Other people in the station heard their voices and came to see what was happening. Lee Dong-yun, the man in charge of the station, looked worried when he saw the creature. Kim Ji-won, who worked with the communication equipment, took pictures with her camera. We need to take it to the medical room, Minho said. It can't breathe our air properly. They all went quickly to the medical room, which had equipment for helping sick or injured team members. Minho put the creature on the examination table, under a bright light. Everyone could see how beautiful and strange it was. I've never seen anything like this, said Dr. Han, the station's medical officer. The scale patterns are amazing. And look at these wing structures. Minho set up a small oxygen tent using plastic sheets in his remaining oxygen containers. The creature seemed to get stronger as it breathed the clean oxygen. Its scales became brighter, and it opened both eyes to look around at all the humans, watching it. It's intelligent, Ji-won said softly. Look at how it's watching us. It knows we're trying to help. As the night went on, the creature got better. It was able to lift its head, and even made small sounds that seemed almost like talking. When Minho reached out his hand, the creature touched his fingers with its nose like it was saying thank you. Nobody slept much that night. They all took turns watching the creature, making sure it had enough oxygen and was comfortable. Minho stayed in the medical room all night, sitting in a chair next to the examination table. By morning, the creature was much better. It could sit up and move its wings a little. When breakfast time came, it showed interest in some of the fruits that the humans ate. Minho cut up small pieces of apple, and the creature ate them carefully with tiny, sharp teeth. What should we call it? Sora asked. Minho watched as the creature stretched its wings in the morning sunlight coming through the window. When it was happy or excited, small sparks of electricity danced between its wingtips, making tiny crackling sounds. Spark, Minho said with a smile. We'll call it Spark. The creature seemed to like the name. It made a sound that was almost like purring, and the sparks from its wings grew brighter and more colorful. None of them knew that they had just saved the most important creature in the galaxy. They were just happy to help a small, hurt animal that needed their care. But their simple act of kindness was about to change everything for humans and dragons alike. 3 weeks had passed since Minho found Spark in the crystal caves. The small creature had grown stronger every day, and now it was almost twice as big as when they first met. Its scales were brighter, and it could fly short distances around the medical room. Everyone at the research station had grown to love the little dragon, though they still did not know what it really was. Spark seemed to understand everything the humans said to it. When Minho called its name, it would come flying over and land on his shoulder. When Sora brought it food, it would make happy sounds and do little tricks in the air. The creature was clearly very smart, maybe even smarter than the humans realized. Kenti. A quiet Tuesday morning, Kim Ji-won was working in the communications room when her equipment started making strange sounds. At first she thought something was broken. The screens showed signals coming from far away in space, but they were unlike anything she had seen before. Lee Dong-yun, you need to see this, Ji-won called out. Her voice sounded worried. Dong-yun came quickly to the communications room. He was a calm man who had dealt with many problems during his time running the research station. But when he saw the readings on Ji-won's screens, his face went pale. Those are ships, he said quietly. Big ships, and they're coming toward Haven 7. The signals were getting stronger by the hour. Whatever was coming toward their planet was huge and moving very fast. Dong-yun called a meeting in the main room of the station. All 12 team members gathered around the big table, looking nervous. We have visitors coming, Dong-yun told everyone. The signals suggest multiple large ships, much bigger than anything humans have built. They'll be here in about 6 hours. Park, Sora stood up, her soldier training taking over. Could they be hostile? Should we prepare to evacuate? Before anyone could answer, Spark came flying into the room. The little creature had been sleeping in the medical room, but it seemed to sense that something important was happening. It landed on the table in front of everyone and made sounds that were different from its usual happy noises. These sounds were more complex, almost like it was trying to say words. Jiwan looked at her equipment again. I'm getting more signals. Now. They're not random. Someone is trying to communicate with us, but I can't understand the language. She put the incoming messages through the station's translation computer, but nothing worked. The language was completely unknown, with sounds and patterns that no human had ever heard before. Hours passed as they waited. The ships got closer and closer. Through the station's telescope, they could see lights in the sky that grew brighter as the day went on. Spark became more and more excited, flying around the station and making those strange word-like sounds. It's like Spark knows what's happening, Minho said, watching the creature carefully. Look at how it's acting. It's not scared. It's excited. Finally, just as the sun was setting, the ships arrived. But these were not like any ships the humans had ever seen. They were beautiful and terrible at the same time, looking more like flying castles than metal spacecraft. The ships glowed with golden light, and they moved through the air without making any sound. The largest ship landed in the flat area outside the research station. It was so big that it blocked out half the sky. The other ships stayed floating, in the air above like guards watching over everything. From the big ship came a figure that made all the humans step back in amazement. It was tall and walked on two legs like a human, but it was clearly not human. Its skin looked like silver, metal, and its eyes glowed with blue light. Most surprising of all, it had features that reminded them of Spark. The same kind of scales, the same intelligent golden eyes, the same graceful way of moving. The figure stopped in front of the research station and spoke. Its voice was deep and powerful, and somehow the humans could understand the words even though they were in a strange language. I am Ambassador Zelith of the Draconic Imperium, the figure said. We have come for His Royal Magnificence, Prince Thyros of the Eternal Flame. All the humans looked at each other in confusion. They had no idea who Prince Thyros was or what the Draconic Imperium meant. But then Spark made a loud, happy sound and flew straight toward the tall figure. The ambassador's serious expression changed to one of joy and relief. My prince, Ambassador Zelith said, and the humans finally understood. Spark was not just some unknown creature they had found in a cave. Spark was a prince, and these were his people. But the ambassador's joy quickly turned to concern as he looked at the humans. You have cared for the prince, and for this we are grateful. But why? Did you take him? What do you want from the Draconic Imperium? Minho stepped forward, feeling scared but knowing he had to speak. We didn't know who he was. We found him hurt and trapped in a cave. We only wanted to help him get better. Ambassador Zelith studied Minho carefully. The tall dragon could change. His shape, sometimes looking more human and sometimes looking more like a giant version of Spark. His golden eyes seemed to see right through Minho's soul. You expect me to believe that you helped the prince without knowing who he was? Without wanting anything in return? The ambassador's voice was full of doubt. It's true, Sora said, stepping up beside Minho. We've been taking care of him for 3 weeks. We gave him food, medicine, and a safe place to rest. We didn't know he was important. We just knew he needed help. Jiwan showed the ambassador her pictures and videos of Spark's recovery. The recordings showed how carefully the humans had treated the little creature, how they had sat with him all night when he was sick, and how happy they were when he got better. Ambassador Zelith watched the videos with growing surprise. Your species helped the prince simply because he was hurt? You asked for no payment, no reward, no alliance with our people? That's right, Donghyun said. It's what any decent person would do. When we see someone in trouble, we help them. The Seppi ambassador was quiet for a long time, thinking about what he had heard and seen. Spark flew back and forth between the humans and the ambassador, making happy sounds and clearly trying to communicate something important. The prince has become attached to you, Ambassador Zelith said finally. This is unusual. Dragons do not usually form bonds with other species. But Prince Thyros refuses to leave without the one who saved him. Minho felt his heart jump. Spark landed on his shoulder and nuzzled against his neck, making the soft purring sound that meant he was happy and comfortable. "We don't want to keep him away from his family," Minho said. "We just wanted to make sure he was safe and healthy." Ambassador Zelith looked around at all the humans, studying their faces and their actions. He seemed to be making some kind of important decision. "What you have done is remarkable," he said slowly. "In all our long history, we have never encountered a species that would help a dragon without expecting something in return. Most species either run away in fear or try to capture us for our power." He paused and looked directly at Minho. "But this creates a problem. Prince Thyros is the only heir to the Dragon Empire. His father, Emperor Vorthak, has been searching for him for months. The Emperor thought his son was dead." The humans looked at each other with growing worry. An emperor sounded very important and very powerful. "The Emperor is coming here himself," Ambassador Zelith continued. "He brings with him 500 legions of our finest warriors. They will arrive in 7 days. 500 legions? Sora asked, her voice tight with concern. Each legion commands ships that could destroy your entire planet, the ambassador explained. The Emperor is coming not just to retrieve his son, but to judge your species. Dragons have watched humanity grow and spread across the galaxy. Now we must decide if your people are worthy to share the stars with us, or if you are a threat that must be contained. The humans felt a chill of fear. They had saved one small creature out of kindness, and now the most powerful beings in the galaxy were coming to judge all of humanity based on their actions. What will happen to us? Jiwan asked quietly. Ambassador Zelith looked at Spark, who was still sitting contentedly on Minho's shoulder. That depends on what Emperor Vorthak finds. When he gets here, dragons value honor, courage, and selfless action above all things. The fact that you saved Prince Thyros may speak well for your species, but the Emperor will need to see proof that your kindness is genuine and not just a trick. Over the next few hours, Ambassador Zelith asked many questions about human society, human values, and why the research team had acted as they did. He seemed particularly interested in Minho's story of finding and rescuing Spark. As the night grew late, the ambassador made an announcement that would change everything. I will stay here with a small group of my people while we wait for the Emperor, he said. During this time, Prince Thyros may choose to remain with his human friends if that is his wish. But know this. When Emperor Vorthak arrives, he will test your species. That test will determine the future relationship between humans and dragons. The ambassador looked around at all the worried human faces. I suggest you prepare carefully. The fate of your entire species may depend on what happens in the next 7 days. As the humans tried to sleep that night, they realized that their simple act of kindness had set in motion events that could change the galaxy forever. Outside, their windows. The dragon ships glowed in the darkness like fallen stars. The news of Emperor Vorthak's approaching fleet spread across human space like wildfire. Within hours of Ambassador Zelith's announcement, emergency messages were racing from Haven 7 to Earth, and every human colony in between. The message was simple and terrifying. Dragons were real, they were powerful beyond imagination, and they were coming to judge humanity. On Haven 7, the research station had become the center of the most important moment in human history. Government, officials, military commanders, and diplomats were sending messages every few minutes, all asking the same questions. What did the dragons want? How powerful were they? Could humanity survive this encounter? Park Sora had barely slept since the dragon ships arrived. Her military training told her to prepare for the worst, but how could anyone prepare for beings who could destroy planets? She spent her days organizing evacuation plans for the research team, even though she knew that running away might make the dragons think humans were cowards. We have 17 ships in the nearby systems, she told Li Dongyun as they looked at the communication reports. The military is asking if they should come here to help defend Haven 7. Dongyun shook his head. 17 human ships against 500 dragon legions? That would be suicide, and it might make the Emperor think we're planning to attack him. Through the station windows, they could see more dragon ships arriving every day. Each new ship was different from the others, some looking like flying mountains made of crystal and metal, others appearing to be carved from single pieces of stone that glowed with inner fire. The sky above Haven 7 was beginning to fill with these impossible vessels. Ambassador Zelith had set up a temporary diplomatic area outside the research station. His people were preparing for their emperor's arrival, creating structures that seemed to grow from the ground itself. The dragon diplomats moved with grace and power, and everything they touched became more beautiful than it had been before. Kim Ji-won was working harder than she had ever worked in her life. Her job was to establish better communication between humans and dragons, but it was incredibly difficult. Dragon language had layers of meaning that human minds could barely understand. Every time she thought she had figured out how to say something properly, Ambassador Zelith would politely explain that she had accidentally insulted someone's ancestors or challenged someone to a battle. Their language is like music and mathematics, and poetry all mixed together, she told Minho as they sat in the communication room. When they say hello, they're also stating their family history, their intentions, and their opinion of the weather. And if I get the tone wrong, I might be declaring war instead of asking how their day is going. Minho was having his own challenges. Spark had grown even larger since his people arrived, now the size of a large dog. The young dragon was clearly excited to see other members of his species, but he still refused to leave Minho's side for more than a few minutes at a time. This was creating problems with dragon protocol. In our culture, Ambassador Zelith explained to Minho, the bond between Prince Theros and yourself is very unusual. Dragons rarely form such attachments to other species. Some of my people think it shows weakness in the prince, others believe it shows that your species has some special quality we have not seen before. Minho watched as Spark played with some of the younger dragons who had come with the ambassador. Even while playing, Spark kept looking back to make sure Minho was still there. The attachment between them had grown stronger over the weeks they had spent together. I don't want to cause problems for him with his own people, Minho said. If it would be better for Spark to stay with the dragons, I understand. That is, not for us to decide, Ambassador Zelith replied. When Emperor Vorthak arrives, he will evaluate the bond between you and his son. That evaluation will be an important part of his judgment of humanity. As the days passed, more reports came in from across human space. The approaching dragon fleet was so large that it was causing gravitational effects in every system it passed through. Space stations reported their instruments going crazy as the dragon ships moved past. Some of the dragon vessels were so big that they had their own weather systems with clouds and lightning playing around their hulls. The human government on Earth was in chaos. Some officials wanted to send the entire human fleet to Haven 7, hoping to make a show of strength. Others argued for complete surrender, believing that any resistance would lead to humanity's destruction. A few wise leaders suggested that the key might be in understanding why the dragons had chosen to reveal themselves now, after hiding for so long. Dr. Han, the station's medical officer, had been studying blood samples that Spark had allowed him to take. What he found amazed and frightened him at the same time. This creature is not just intelligent, he told the team during one of their evening meetings. Its cellular structure is like nothing I've ever seen. Each scale contains what appears to be microscopic machinery. Its brain shows activity patterns that suggest it's processing information at speeds that should be impossible for any organic creature. Sora listened to this report with growing concern. So we're dealing with beings who are not just powerful, but also far more advanced than us in ways we don't even understand. That's not the most interesting part, Dr. Han continued. The blood work also shows that Spark is still very young. Based on the cellular aging patterns, he's probably the equivalent of a 5 or 6-year-old human child. And yet he already shows intellectual abilities that surpass most adult humans. This information made everyone think about their situation differently. They were not just dealing with powerful aliens, they were dealing with beings whose children were smarter than human adults. Meanwhile, Spark seemed unaware of all the worry and fear around him. The young dragon spent his days exploring the area around the research station with Minho, showing him plants and rocks that had special properties. Spark could somehow sense things about the environment that human instruments missed completely. One afternoon, Spark led Minho to a small hill near the station. The young dragon began digging in the ground with his claws, making excited sounds. When Minho helped him dig, they uncovered crystals that were completely different from anything found in the caves. These crystals pulsed with a gentle light and felt warm to the touch. Ambassador Zelith was very interested when they showed him the crystals. Prince Thyros has found a resonance stone formation, he explained. These stones respond to dragon presence and can be used for long-distance communication across the galaxy. Your planet has resources that could be very valuable to our people. This discovery added another layer of complexity to the situation. Haven 7 was not just the place where humans and dragons had first met, it was also a world with materials that dragons valued. Some of the human officials who heard about the crystals began to worry that the dragons had come not just to judge humanity, but to claim the planet for themselves. As the 7th day approached, the sky above Haven 7 was filled with dragon ships. The local star seemed dimmer because so many massive vessels were blocking its light. The dragon fleet stretched from the planet's surface to beyond its outer moon. Each ship was a masterpiece of engineering and art, beautiful beyond human imagination, and powerful beyond human comprehension. Ambassador Zelith began making preparations for his emperor's arrival. Dragon ceremonies involved complex rituals that had been performed for thousands of years. The area around the research station was transformed into something that looked like a combination of a throne room and a garden, with structures that seemed to be grown rather than built. The emperor will arrive tomorrow at sunset, Ambassador Zelith told the humans. He will expect to meet with representatives of your species immediately. I suggest you choose your words very carefully. Emperor Vorthak is ancient beyond your understanding, and he has little patience for dishonesty or foolishness. That night, the research team held what might be their last meeting as free human beings. They talked about what they would say to the emperor, how they would explain their actions, and what they hoped the future might hold for both species. We saved one small creature because it was the right thing to do, Minho said. That's the truth, and that's what I'll tell the emperor no matter what happens, Sora nodded. If humanity is going to be judged, then let us be judged for who we really are, not for who we pretend to be. Jiwan had prepared translation protocols that would help her communicate more clearly with the dragons. I've learned enough of their language to avoid the worst mistakes, she said. But everyone needs to speak slowly and think carefully about every word. Dongyun had received final instructions from the human government on Earth. They want us to negotiate for the best possible terms, he told the team, but they also understand that we might not have any power to negotiate at all. The decision may be entirely up to the Emperor. As they prepared for sleep on their last night before the Emperor's arrival, each of them wondered what the next day would bring. Outside their windows, the dragon fleet hung in the sky like a constellation of new stars, beautiful and terrible and utterly alien. Spark curled up next to Minho's bed, making the soft, purring sounds that meant he felt safe and happy. The young dragon seemed to trust completely in the bond he had formed. The morning of Emperor Vorthak's arrival dawned clear and bright over Haven 7, but the sunlight seemed weak compared to the glow coming from the massive dragon ships filling the sky. The largest ship of all appeared just as the sun reached its highest point, descending from space like a falling mountain made of black crystal and golden fire. Emperor Vorthak's ship was so enormous that it created its own weather. Clouds formed around its hull, and lightning danced between structures that looked like towers and spires. When it finally settled onto the ground outside the research station, the earth shook for miles in every direction. Minho stood with his teammates outside the station, watching as a doorway opened in the side of the Imperial ship. The opening was tall enough for giants to walk through, and from it came a procession of dragon figures that took his breath away. First came the honor guards, dragons in their humanoid forms wearing armor that seemed to be made from starlight and shadow. Their faces were beautiful and terrible, with eyes that held the wisdom of ages. Behind them walked advisors and courtiers, each one radiating power that made the air around them shimmer. Finally, Emperor Vorthak himself appeared, and Minho understood immediately why this being ruled an empire that spanned the galaxy. The Emperor was taller than any of his followers, and his presence made everything around him seem small and insignificant. His skin was the color of deep space, dark and mysterious, with patterns that moved like constellations across his arms and face. When he walked, each step seemed to make the ground itself more solid and real. But it was the Emperor's eyes that truly showed his power. They were ancient beyond imagination, holding memories of civilizations that had risen and fallen before humans had even learned to make fire. When those eyes turned toward the research team, Minho felt as though his entire life was being examined and judged in a single moment. Spark flew toward his father with joy and excitement, making the happy sounds that the humans had come to love. But when he reached the Emperor, the young dragon suddenly became very formal, bowing his head and folding his wings in a gesture of respect. Even in his happiness, Spark remembered that he was in the presence of the ruler of his people. Emperor Vorthak spoke, and his voice was like distant thunder, deep and powerful but not harsh. Somehow, all the humans could understand his words, even though he spoke in the ancient dragon language. "My son," the Emperor said, and for a moment his stern expression softened. "We feared you were lost forever. Your absence has been like a wound in the heart of our people." Spark replied in the dragon language, his voice high and musical compared to his father's deep tones. The conversation between father and son went on for several minutes, with Spark gesturing toward the humans and making sounds that seemed urgent and important. When they finished talking, Emperor Vorthak turned his attention to the humans. His gaze settled on each person in turn, and Minho felt as though the Emperor was reading his thoughts and memories. "I am told that you are the ones who found and cared for my son," the Emperor said. His voice carried no emotion, making it impossible to tell whether he was grateful or angry. "Approach, so that I may see you more clearly." The research team walked forward together, trying not to show their fear. Minho could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears as they stopped a few feet, away from the most powerful being in the galaxy. "Prince Thyros tells me an interesting story," Emperor Vorthak continued. "He says that you found him dying in a cave, trapped and poisoned by toxic gases. He says that you freed him, gave him oxygen to breathe, and nursed him back to health. He says that you asked for nothing in return and treated him with kindness and respect." The Emperor paused, studying their faces. "Is this true?" Li Donghyun stepped forward slightly, his diplomatic training helping him find the right words. "Yes, Your Imperial Majesty. We found Prince Thyros injured and did everything we could to help him recover." "And why did you do this?" the Emperor asked. "What did you hope to gain from helping a creature you did not recognize?" This time Minho answered, his voice steady despite his fear. "We helped him because he was hurt and needed help. That's what you do when you find someone in trouble. You help them." Emperor Vorthak's eyes narrowed slightly. "Even when helping might be dangerous for you? Even when the creature might be your enemy?" "Spark wasn't our enemy," Minho replied. "He was just a small, scared creature who needed care. How could we turn away from that?" The Emperor walked closer to Minho, his massive presence overwhelming. "Show me your memories of finding my son. Dragons have the ability to share thoughts and images. Will you allow me to see what truly happened in that cave?" Minho felt his mouth go dry. Letting an alien being look into his mind sounded terrifying, but he knew this might be humanity's only chance to prove their honesty. "Yes," Minho said quietly. "You can look." Emperor Vorthak placed one hand on Minho's forehead, and suddenly, Minho's mind was filled with images and sensations that were not his own. He could feel the Emperor's consciousness touching his memories, examining every moment from the time he first heard Spark's cries in the cave until now. The connection lasted only a few seconds, but it felt like hours. When the Emperor removed his hand, Minho staggered slightly, feeling dizzy and strange. "Interesting," Emperor Vorthak said, his voice thoughtful. "Your memories show no deception. You truly did help my son simply because you thought it was the right thing to do." The Emperor turned to Ambassador Zelith. "What have you learned about this species during your time here?" "They are unusual, my Emperor," Zalith replied. They show genuine care for other beings, even aliens they have never encountered before. They work together without being forced to do so, and they seem to value life and kindness above personal gain. And what of their technology and military power? The Emperor asked. Primitive by our standards, but advancing rapidly, Zalith answered. Their weapons could not threaten us, but they show creativity and intelligence in their engineering. More importantly, they do not seem inclined toward unnecessary violence. Emperor Vorthak nodded slowly, processing this information. Then he turned back to the humans. For 3,000 years, my people have watched younger species develop across the galaxy, he said. Most species follow predictable patterns. They become aggressive as they gain power. They take what they want without regard for others, and they eventually become threats to all other life. The Emperor began to walk in a slow circle around the humans, like a predator studying its prey. We have been forced to limit the expansion of 17 different species because they could not be trusted to share the galaxy peacefully. Some we contained to their home systems. Others we guided toward more suitable paths of development. A few we had to eliminate entirely. Minho felt cold fear wash over him. The Emperor was talking about the destruction of entire civilizations as casually as someone might discuss gardening. But you humans puzzle us, the Emperor continued. You show both great potential and great danger. You develop weapons and spread across worlds as aggressive species do. But you also show unexpected mercy and kindness, as my son's rescue demonstrates. The Emperor stopped walking and faced them directly. This is why I have come here personally with the full might of our Imperial fleet. I must determine which path humanity will follow. Will you become another species we must contain? Or will you prove worthy of joining the great community of civilized worlds? Park Sora found the courage to speak. What would we need to prove to earn your trust, Your Majesty? Emperor Vorthak smiled for the first time, but it was not a completely reassuring expression. You will face 3 trials. The first has already begun with your rescue of my son, but that was only one human acting alone. Can your entire species show the same? Wisdom and restraint? The Emperor gestured toward the sky filled with dragon ships. My second trial is this. I offer your people a choice. You may attack my fleet with all your military power, hoping to destroy us before we can judge you. Or you can face judgment, peacefully, trusting in your own goodness to save you. What will humanity choose? Before anyone could answer, Kim Jawan's communication equipment began making urgent sounds. Messages were pouring in from human military command, reporting that battle fleets from 3 different human worlds were approaching Haven 7 at maximum speed. Emperor Vorthak listened to the message translations with an expression of interest, rather than anger. It seems your leaders have chosen combat over trust. 500 human ships against 500 dragon legions. This will tell us much about your species' true nature. The Emperor looked directly at Minho. But before that battle begins, you face the third and most important trial. My son has bonded with you in a way that is sacred to our people. According to our oldest laws, you now have the right to speak for humanity in our formal judgment ceremony. Minho felt the weight of billions of lives settling on his shoulders. What do I need to do? You must convince me that humanity deserves to survive and grow among the stars, Emperor Vorthak said simply. You have one chance to speak for your entire species. Choose your words carefully, Kang Minho of Haven 7. The fate of every human who will ever be born depends on what you say next. As if summoned by the Emperor's words, Spark flew over and landed on Minho's shoulder. Minho stood before Emperor Vorthak with the weight of human civilization on his shoulders. Above them, the approaching human fleet was getting closer by the minute, their ships looking like tiny sparks against the massive dragon vessels. Spark sat on his shoulder making soft, encouraging sounds, and Minho drew strength from the young dragon's trust. Your Imperial Majesty, Minho began, his voice growing stronger as he spoke. I'm not a diplomat or a leader. I'm just a scientist who studies rocks and plants. But I know what I saw in that cave 3 weeks ago, and I know what I felt when I decided to help Spark. Emperor Vorthak listened without expression, his ancient eyes focused entirely on Minho's words. When I found Spark hurt and trapped, I didn't think about what species he was or whether helping him would benefit me, Minho continued. I just saw someone who was suffering and knew I had to try to help. That's not special about me. That's what humans do. The Emperor's advisors murmured among themselves, but Vorthak remained silent, waiting for more. You've watched us for 3,000 years and you've seen us build weapons and fight wars, Minho said. That's true, we do those things, but you've also seen us build hospitals, schools, and research stations. You've seen us rescue strangers, care for orphans, and risk our lives to save people we've never met. Minho gestured toward his teammates. Look at Sora. She spent her career protecting people even when it put her in danger. Look at Jiwon, who worked day and night to learn your language so we could understand each other better. Look at Dongyun, who has dedicated his life to helping human colonies succeed and grow. These are just words, one of the Emperor's advisors said coldly. Any species can claim to be good and kind. We judge by actions, not speeches. Then judge us by our actions, Minho replied. In 3 weeks of caring for Spark, did any human try to hurt him? Did we try to sell him or use him for our own gain? Did we experiment on him or lock him in a cage? Emperor Vorthak spoke for the first time since Minho had begun. No, you gave him freedom, friendship, and care. But one small group of humans acting kindly does not prove that your entire species can be trusted. You're right, Minho agreed. But let me ask you something. Why did you decide to test us at all? You could have just destroyed humanity when you first learned about us. Why give us a chance? The Emperor considered this question carefully. Because in all our watching, we have seen hints that humans might be different. You create art that speaks of beauty and hope. You tell stories about heroes who sacrifice themselves for others. You build monuments to peace and cooperation, not just to war and conquest. Then you already know who we really are, Minho said. The same thing that made me save Spark is in every human. We're not perfect. We make mistakes and sometimes hurt each other. But when we see suffering, most of us want to help. When we see injustice, most of us want to fix it. When we see beauty, most of us want to protect it. At that moment, the communication equipment crackled to life. Kim Jiwon quickly translated the incoming message from the human fleet commander. The human ships are asking for permission to approach, she reported. Their commander wants to negotiate for the safety of Haven 7. Emperor Vorthak looked toward the sky where the human fleet was now visible as a small cluster of lights. Your military leaders chose to come here despite knowing they cannot win. Against us, why would they do something so futile? Because they're trying to protect us, Sora answered. They know those ships can't defeat your fleet. But they came anyway because they think we need help. They're willing to die for people they've never met, Dongyun added. That's what humans do. We protect each other. The Emperor was quiet for a long moment, and Minho could see that he was truly considering what had been said. Finally, Vorthak spoke to his communication officers in the dragon language. After a brief exchange, he turned back to the humans. I have ordered my fleet to establish a communication link with your approaching ships, he said. Their commander will be invited to land here so that I may speak with him directly. Within an hour, a small human transport ship landed near the research station. From it stepped Fleet Admiral Chen Wu-jin, a veteran officer whose uniform showed the medals of many campaigns. He approached the Emperor with military bearing, showing respect but not fear. Your Imperial Majesty, Admiral Chen said through Jiwon's translation, I am here to negotiate for the release of our people and the protection of our colonies. What can you offer me that I cannot simply take? Emperor Vorthak asked. Admiral Chen straightened his shoulders. Nothing, Your Majesty. You have power beyond our imagination, but I can offer you something that power cannot create. Partnership with a species that will never stop trying to do the right thing, even when it's difficult. The Emperor studied the Admiral with the same intensity he had focused on Minho. Explain. My ships came here knowing we couldn't win, Admiral Chen said. We came because when humans are in trouble, other humans come to help. That's not just military doctrine. That's who we are. If you let humanity survive and grow, You'll have allies who will stand beside you not because they're forced to, but because it's right. Emperor Vorthak walked slowly around the small group of humans, thinking deeply about everything he had heard and seen. Spark flew off Minho's shoulder and landed on the ground between his father and the humans, looking back and forth between them with hope in his golden eyes. "My son believes in your species," the Emperor said finally. "He has shown me memories of the kindness he experienced here, and he has argued passionately for humanity's inclusion in the galactic community." The Emperor turned to face the massive dragon fleet filling the sky. "For 3,000 years we have hidden from younger species because we believed that contact with us would change them, make them either fearful servants or ambitious enemies. But perhaps it is time for dragons to take a different path." Emperor Vorthak looked back at the humans with an expression that might have been the beginning of a smile. "You humans have shown us something we had not expected to find. A species that values kindness over power, cooperation over conquest. These are qualities that dragons respect above all others." "Does this mean?" Minho began, hardly daring to hope. "It means that humanity has passed our trials," Emperor Vorthak announced. "You rescued my son without thought of reward. Your leaders chose to protect their people even at the cost of their own lives, and your representative spoke with honesty and wisdom about what your species truly values." The Emperor raised his hand, and across the sky, the dragon ships began to change. Their aggressive formations shifted into something that looked more ceremonial, more welcoming. "I hereby declare that humanity shall be welcomed as junior partners in the Draconic Imperium," Emperor Vorthak said formally. "You will have access to our technology, our knowledge, and our protection as you grow into your role as guardians of life in this galaxy." The humans could hardly believe what they were hearing. Admiral Chen requested permission to contact his fleet and the human government with the news. Emperor Vorthak granted the request, and soon messages were flying across human space announcing that humanity had gained the most powerful allies imaginable. But the Emperor was not finished. "This partnership will not be easy," he warned. "Dragons and humans are very different species. We will need to learn from each other, and there will be challenges and misunderstandings. Success will require patience, wisdom, and continued commitment to the values that brought us together." He looked directly at Minho. "You, Kang Minho, will serve as the first human ambassador to the dragon people. Your bond with my son makes you uniquely qualified to help our species understand each other." Minho felt overwhelmed by the honor and responsibility. "I don't know if I'm qualified for such an important job. You are qualified because you acted with kindness when kindness was difficult," Emperor Vorthak replied. "You are qualified because my son trusts you completely, and you are qualified because you understand that the most important actions are often the smallest ones." Over the following days, Haven 7 was transformed into the first joint human-dragon settlement. The dragon ships that had once seemed threatening became the foundation for a new kind of civilization. Dragon technology helped the humans build better homes and research facilities, while human creativity and energy impressed the ancient dragons. Spark grew rapidly in the environment where both species worked together. He spent part of each day learning dragon history and customs from his father's advisors, and part of each day exploring and playing with his human friends. The young prince became a symbol of the cooperation between the two species. Park Sora found herself in charge of security coordination between human and dragon forces. She discovered that dragon warriors were incredibly honorable and easy to work with once she learned their customs and traditions. Li Dongyun became the official human liaison to the Dragon Diplomatic Corps, helping to negotiate the complex agreements that would govern the new partnership. His patience and skill at finding compromises made him valuable to both species. Kim Ji-won established the first Xenolinguistics Institute, where humans and dragons worked together to develop better ways of communicating across the barriers of language and culture. Admiral Chen returned to human space to begin the process of integrating